Good evening, everyone. My name is Gaurav Juneja, and you're watching Weekender at 5. In this bulletin, we bring you the top stories of the day. Starting from some local news, there were 201 cases of COVID-19 in the community today, and it has been confirmed that COVID has found its way to Taranaki. Of these 201 cases, 181 are in Auckland, 15 are in Waikato, 4 are in Northland, and 1 is in Taranaki. Location of interest related to these cases have been released by the Ministry of Health, and you can check at the given link should you have been in the area. News from T20 World Cup. Australia defeated Pakistan by 5 wickets to enter the finals of ICC T20 World Cup. Mohammad Rizwan and Fakhar Zaman smashed quick 50s as Pakistan posted a challenging 176 for 4. Chasing, David Warner made 49, while Matthew Wade smashed a 17-ball unbeaten 41 as Australia overhauled the target with an over to spare. Australia will now face New Zealand in the final on Sunday. In Canada, world's first patient diagnosed with climate change. As reported, a doctor in Canada's British Columbia province has diagnosed a patient who came in with breathing trouble as suffering from climate change, possibly. This would be the first case recorded till date. The patient was struggling to breathe after the recent wildfires in the Kootenays area. Looking at the news from India, India has reported 13,091 new coronavirus cases and 340 deaths in the last 24 hours. Besides, 13,878 recoveries were also recorded during this period. The recovery rate is currently at 98.25%, highest since March 2020. The active caseload stands at 1,38,556, which has been lowest in the 226 days. And for the final topic of the day, the three strikes law. Chris Fofoy, who is also the Minister of Justice, is pushing ahead with moves to repeal the three strikes law, saying it is an anomaly in the justice system and has led to absurd and perverse outcomes. The three strikes law, which came into force under National Act in 2010, means third-time serious offenders get the maximum sentence with no chance of parole. The law currently requires judges to impose the maximum sentence for offenders who commit 3 serious and violent crimes. The Green Party welcomed the overhaul, but ACT and National Party said the government was putting the interest of the offenders before the victims. Speaking on this news, Indian Weekender spoke to Mr. Sunny Kaushal, who is the chairperson of the Dairy and Business Owners Group. Thank you, Mr. Kaushal, for coming over on Weekender at 5. I really appreciate it. So the topic of the discussion today is three strike policy, which will be scratched by the government following the announcement by the Minister of Justice, Chris Fofoy, yesterday. I wanted to ask a few questions regarding that, but before that, can you explain in your own words what this policy would mean for the wider community of Indian?
See, let's first go a step back. When this three strikes law was launched in 2010, the objective of this law at the time was for the criminals and offenders who, if they are doing any crime, they have to do their time, right? So they must be held accountable and they must be punished for that one. And if after the punishment, after finishing it, if they repeat the crime, if they do it again, then the judicial system would take them very seriously and would give them the punishment accordingly. So it was not like that that they have a second go, third go, and they should take it like nothing is happening and all that stuff. So that law was that's why this was three strikes law. So over the time, if you say it's now been nearly 10 years, and it has been one of the deterrent factor. So even if it can stop one crime, it is working. It was working. So that means that you're able to stop one crime, you're able to stop violence or a criminal act on any individual or business or a family, and then whatever the pain and trauma and destruction follows after that one. So, but since the change in the government, when you go to the last term of the Labour coalition government, at the time with the New Zealand First and Greens, so at that time also, Andrew Little at that time had tried to repeal this law. But there were some wise people in that government, likes of Mr. Peters. So he stopped that, but he did not let it to be repealed. And now in this term, it's Labour have full majority. So now they're trying to, do what they wanted. So this is another step which they have taken, which is very unfortunate. Look, when it comes to the safety and security or law, there should be an unapologetic approach to solve the situation. The law need to be stringent. We need to make and we need to ensure our people and our businesses are safer. Absolutely no compromise.
Right.
That's what, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Kaushal, when this policy was originally announced in 2010 by the ACT Party and the National Party, they was expected that more than 5% of the prisoners and the people who will be affected by it. But according to the statistics, only 78 people, that is 1% of the whole everyone who went to the prison, has been affected by this policy. Was there any determinant factor that was looked into consideration but has changed over the period of these last 10 years, that we have to go back to that reappeal?
Look, this is totally an political and ideological decision which has happened on repealing of this law. But as you rightly said, even if there was 1% productivity or 1% results, or 1% offenders who were deterred or caught or were punished under this law, it was still good. I mean, at least you were able to stop those many crime acts, and that's what my point was, right? So there was no need to repeal it. Even if it is solved one case, if it has stopped one robbery, one assault, one crime, there was no need to repeal it.
Right.
I mean, when you're speeding, so when you see a police car, why would you put the foot on the brake? Because there is a deterrence. So when dealing with crime, which has been rising over the years, there need to be, in fact, more deterrence. And in fact, there was an opportunity for the government to review the law and put it into today's perspective. When the crime is increasing, you need to be tough with crime. You need to send a strong message out there. There should be a clear message to the offenders, to the criminals. If they are doing the crime, they would be caught and they would be held accountable. But what is we are looking at the market or around, so many cases that has happened in the last 2-3 years. You look at the news we are dealing with those victims very closely. What we are looking at is there is daylight robberies happening. There is the assaults and robberies are happening in public areas, which tells that the offenders, they have no fear of the law. They have no fear of police. They have no fear of being caught or any consequences.
That is exactly my point for my next question, that a larger population of Indian subcontinent, they run dairy stores across the country. And will this policy will affect them who live under the fear that they might get robbed every now and then, and the offendant will not even be punished for their crimes?
This is a very, very serious concern across the businesses. I mean, be those small businesses or retail businesses. I mean, I can tell you from up north, Kataya to Bluff, there is nearly 4,900 small businesses, which, we have an organization that I'm representing and also speaking on their behalf and then taking up various issues with the government from time to time. So the issue of rising crime and spate in crime has been quite concernful. You would have seen there are lots of shops, even here in South Auckland, they have put those grills and the metal bars like structures. So basically, those business owners and workers, so the people who are running those dairies, so they have created that jail-like structure. So basically, they have encased themselves to protect themselves and their property from the offenders, and the offenders are in the streets. So by repealing these kind of laws, by sending a message that law is going to be more lenient, and they, even if they get caught, they would get released with a simple tap on the wrist, is going to be a big issue, big challenge. It's going to be create a huge unsafe environment across the country for the residents and also for the businesses.
Right. As you said, that it will actually have, and people will start living in the fear that they might get robbed, and that's why they have pulled that's why they have installed bars across their counters, so that people just can protect themselves rather than getting robbed. So how important is the policy of moving forward? Is there or there should be any policy that a government should introduce to protect anyone who maybe who get caught in their offense, maybe second time or third time or maybe fourth time, doing the severity of the damages that they have caused? Because the damages that they have caused is not just monetary, but it also emotionally hampers the owners, the retail owners and the dairy shop owners.
You rightly said, right now, these kind of offending and crime acts in New Zealand are costing the retail industry, which includes the dairies and small businesses, over $1 billion a year, which is a huge cost. Plus the cost to the victims. So you see, whenever any incident like this happens, as you rightly said, it leaves a trail of trauma. It obviously it causes injuries, it causes destruction, it left a huge pain, and it disturbs the families, the communities. It's huge. So rather than thinking about the victims and their welfare and how to support the victims, unfortunately, the government is gone to make the law lenient and supporting, basically sending a message to those offenders that this is like a crime holiday for them, which should not be the case, which should not be tolerated. It should be unacceptable in a first world like this, like New Zealand. If you look at the countries like Singapore, Korea, and there's so many other countries, they have very balanced laws. Look, I mean, it's a common sense that you need to put a cliff up on the, you need to put a fence up on the cliff. You shouldn't be waiting with the ambulance down the mountain. So this is what the government is doing. This policy is going to create more offenders. It's going to increase in the crime incidents, and especially for the smaller businesses, it's going to create havoc. I can tell you, there are a number of businesses here in Auckland I can quote, even in Onehunga and even Mount Albert. The other day, I got a call saying that they have a few offenders which have done the offending on those shops. They have done the assaults and robberies on those shops, but they were left out. They were released sooner because our judicial system is too weak. It's just too. Let me put it this way: our judicial system is basically failing our police in the communities. Our police is doing a good job, don't take me wrong. But when they caught the offender, when it is taken to the judicial system, and that's where things are going wrong, and they are left with a tap on their wrist and let go easily because of so many flaws in law. And then those offenders, they come back in the same streets and they intimidate those business owners. And this is exactly what I was about to tell you. In Onehunga and in Mount Albert, there are a few dairy owners. They contacted that saying that, these guys, they were caught earlier, but now they're back into the streets. They are scaring those workers and dairy owners again. So if this law now it is repealed, it would mean that it would give more free hand to those criminals and offenders.
Right.
And this should not be the message. This should not be the message. The message need to go strong from the government to these offenders. If they're doing the crime, they have to do their time. And if they're doing the crime repeatedly again and again, then there are consequences. There should be serious consequences, not letting them go easily.
Right. As you said, it's actually right. The prevention is better than the cure. And if you are doing the crime again and again, you have to be ready for to answer your crimes, and you have to do the time. Well, that's all the questions that I had for you, Mr. Kaushal, today. Thank you very much for joining us today. Is there any
Thank you very much
that you want to send out to the wider community after this, if this bill will be passed?
I hope this should not be passed, but looking at the numbers that the government has, and also the way the ideological, political actions are happening, I think this would get passed, and this would not be good for New Zealand in the longer term and in the short term. And I think the other parties which I'm hearing from the National Party and the ACT Party and those people, they are saying that they're going to repeal this act when they come into the power. So that would be a good thing to do. I also, there was a couple of years ago, the Labour Party were also saying that, to make the law more lenient, again in favor of the offenders. So they were saying if there's any offender or any offense which is prisonable to up to 2 years sentence, they should not be sent to prison. They should be sent back to the streets. So you can imagine if those people are coming back to the streets without any holding accountable and without being getting any punishment or any message, it's not good for the community. It's not good for the society. We want safer New Zealand. We want safer communities. We want safer businesses.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaushal. I really appreciate your time today.